2-1. Abortion remains legal in Oregon and Washington, even though Roe v. Wade has been overturned. But we will still feel the impacts here. That's because a surge of people seeking abortions are expected to travel from other states where it's now banned. And that includes our next-door neighbor, Idaho.
Women from the Boise area are going to Eastern Oregon to be seeking those abortions.
At the same time, Planned Parenthood is opening a new clinic right on the Oregon-Idaho border to get ready for that expected demand.
We are expecting an estimated 235% increase in people traveling to the state.
Here's the story. I'm Pat Doris. Welcome to The Story. Congratulations, we all made it to Friday. All the ways to communicate with us right there at the bottom of your screen. You can email us. The address is thestory@kgw.com, or use the hashtag TheStoryKGW on Twitter, or leave us a voicemail. Give our phone number a call, 503-226-5090. It has been quite a day in these United States with the landmark Roe v. Wade court ruling overturned. You've no doubt heard about that all day. But as we get going here, let's make sure that we're all on the same page for Oregon and Washington. Each state has strong laws protecting abortions that are not being changed by this ruling. Let's take a look at how we got here. Here's Blair Best.
So, how did we get here? Oregon and Washington had various laws regulating abortion before Roe v. Wade. Washington criminalized it in 1950, while Oregon passed laws in the 60s about when an abortion could happen. In 1973, the Supreme Court legalized the procedure across the country. That's when anti-abortion violence started. The first reported arson at an abortion clinic in the U.S. happened in Eugene in 1976. In 1985, bombs were mailed to 4 clinics in Portland. Then in the 90s, a woman from Grants Pass named Shelley Shannon set fire to clinics in Portland, Eugene, and Ashland, as well as clinics in other western states. She also was convicted of shooting a Kansas doctor who performed abortions. Shannon was released from prison in Oregon in 2018. In Washington, a clinic in Tacoma was bombed in 2001, and a Planned Parenthood in Pullman was set on fire in 2015. Since the 1980s, the number of abortion clinics in both states have decreased. In 1991, Washington passed a law protecting abortion in the state up until viability, when the fetus can survive outside the womb. In 2017, Oregon passed the Reproductive Health Equity Act, which required insurance coverage for abortion. Oregon is also one of just a few states with no legal restrictions on abortion, meaning it remains legal with Roe v. Wade overturned. In Washington, abortion remains legal up until viability. And that's how we got here.
Now let's get into the specifics of what the laws in Washington and Oregon protect when it comes to abortion access. Christine Pitawanich spoke with some legal experts about abortion rights.
The right to abortion is protected under Oregon law and under Washington law. I'm Kim Clark, senior attorney for reproductive rights, health, and justice at Legal Voice.
Legal Voice is a legal advocacy organization that serves Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Alaska, and Montana. In Oregon, abortion access is protected under the Reproductive Health Equity Act, established in 2017.
Abortions have been legal in Oregon for some time. The Reproductive Health Equity Act, signed in 2017, expanded that access for individuals to receive abortions, as well as providers to have the right to provide abortions.
That's Rachel Banks, the public health director at the Oregon Health Authority. She says the Reproductive Health Equity Act covers abortion services regardless of immigration status or insurance barriers. But not all states are so-called safe haven states.
There are 26 states that are poised to ban abortion should Roe v. Wade be overturned.
Clark says one of them is Idaho.
Idaho has a statute, what's called a trigger ban, on the books that will go into effect 30 days after any decision that overrules Roe v. Wade. And that would ban abortion outright.
And bans like that are expected to bring people to Oregon to get an abortion. Here's Crystal Allen with Pro-Choice Oregon.
We are expecting an estimated 235% increase in people traveling to the state.
Clark says that could result in a strain on healthcare providers in our area. She says there are also fears that providers here may face litigation if they provide an abortion to a person from out of state.
The states that ban abortion likely will not stop with banning abortion in their states, but that they will seek to assert jurisdiction over conduct that takes place either partially or entirely outside of their borders.
It's still yet to be seen if that will happen, but what is clear right now:
individuals in Oregon have access to a full suite of reproductive health services as part of core healthcare services that include abortion.
Officials with the Oregon Health Authority say abortion access will continue to expand, especially after the Oregon legislature passed a bill that allocated $15 million to go toward making sure people in all different groups have access to reproductive health services. Christine Pitawanich, KGW News.
By the way, you heard Christine talk about Idaho. We've just heard from the governor's office in Idaho. Their law will not take effect for as long as 60 days from now. They're waiting for the actual judgment to issue from the Supreme Court, and then it'll be 30 days, and then the law will take effect. While abortion is protected here in Oregon, we could still be impacted by that Supreme Court decision. This is a map from the New York Times showing where abortion access will decline. It's based on the proximity of abortion clinics that still exist in states that keep abortion legal. Most abortion clinics in Oregon are on the I-5 corridor. You can sort of see the dots there on the map. The only one close to eastern Oregon is in Bend. According to this map, legal abortion is in far eastern Oregon, specifically Malheur County, could drop by 25 to 30%. That's because most people who live there travel to clinics in Idaho, only about an hour drive. But to get to Bend, it takes about 4 hours. Planned Parenthood said they are already preparing for that.
Bend is been a center of attention for us. It is fully staffed. We do have providers. We do believe that Bend will begin to see potentially more patients, and I'm very confident in that staff in Bend to meet the need.
Planned Parenthood is also preparing to open a clinic in Ontario, Oregon. That is right on the Idaho border there, but it's not clear when that clinic will be open.
Eastern Oregon is a region, among others, that geographically creates obstacles to access the services Planned Parenthood provides. The City of Ontario is one place we are working to establish a clinic. I do not have more details on the timing. As every Planned Parenthood always does, we follow all the permitting and regulatory processes, and that takes time.
We're joined now by Morgan Romero, one of our favorite and former ACE reporters here at KGW, who's now an anchor in Boise. And Morgan, what are you hearing there? What's the reaction to this ruling?
You know, a lot of emotion today on both sides, Pat. Idaho historically has had very strict laws that they've moved through the legislature the last few years in relation to abortion. So this is something that a lot of our lawmakers were holding out hope for, and they were wanting to see this happen. We put a law on the books in 2020 that was a trigger law, effectively banning all abortions if Roe was overturned. They passed a law in 2021 and then amended that in 2022. So this was something they were really anticipating, and you know, when that draft opinion was leaked, everybody was preparing. Planned Parenthood was preparing. Centers that help women with alternative routes during pregnancy were preparing. So this is something that didn't come as a surprise to people in Idaho, but still the emotion very raw today.
So interesting. It sounds like maybe a majority of the people there are in favor of this, of having Roe v. Wade struck down.
It's difficult to gauge what the average Idahoan really feels about abortion, but I do know the vast majority of our lawmakers are supportive of this. We are predominantly conservative, Republican-held legislature. Unlike the state of Oregon, it's sort of the opposite. And this is something that they've really been working on. And currently, we have a law that they tried to push last year, and they passed this year an amendment to it. And that currently is held up in the Idaho Supreme Court, different than the trigger law that goes into effect in 30 days. But it's something that's been worked on actively with lawmakers joining in, and sort of lawmakers versus Planned Parenthood in the state of Idaho.
Interesting. Okay. And of course, with Boise not being far from the Oregon border, a lot of us are wondering if you've heard from women there or their allies who are saying women are going to start now planning to make the trip to Eastern Oregon if they need to get an abortion. Have you heard about that?
We haven't heard directly from any women today or in reaction to the draft opinion, but we have been hearing from Planned Parenthood, who, as I'm sure you guys have reported, has really been beefing up their resources in Eastern Oregon. Currently, the closest abortion clinic to Boise that's not in Boise is in Walla Walla, Washington. So Planned Parenthood took their resources from Boise. They closed their Boise office. They allocated their resources to their Meridian office, which is a suburb outside of Boise. But now that they're not going to be able to do abortions in Idaho, they're trying to open a space in Eastern Oregon, just anticipating for that influx of people that are going to come. They do know it's going to happen. They do know that women from the Boise area are going to be going to Eastern Oregon to be seeking those abortions. And Pat, it's important to note too, I think, as we talk about this and as we hear from experts, historically in terms of access to abortion, and this is going to be the case here in Idaho, women of color, people of lower socioeconomic status, our LGBTQ folks in that community, they are going to be disproportionately impacted by this ban on abortions.
All right. Thank you, Morgan. We'll be watching to see how this plays out, especially in Eastern Oregon. Thank you for your time and for your insights. Good to see you again.
You bet. You too.
Sunday is supposed to be the hottest day of the year so far, with temperatures close to 100 degrees in the Portland metro area. So what have our leaders learned from last year's deadly heat wave? Well, they're planning to talk about that on Sunday at an outdoor event in, yes, close to 100-degree weather, right during the hottest time of the day. When the story continues.
Welcome back. Keep sending your questions and comments to the story at kgw.com or give us a call and leave a voicemail, 503-226-5090. Let's talk about the weather for a moment because, well, here comes the heat. And if you remember, about this time last year, we were preparing for the approaching heat dome. It began June 26th with temperatures of 108 and then 112 the next day and 116 degrees on June 28th. I know you remember that if you were here. It was awful. Much later, we learned that statewide 116 people died from the heat-related causes connected to those 3 days. This year, we are expecting temperatures in the upper 90s, maybe about 100 degrees this weekend, with more overnight cooling than last year, though, and that's a big difference. This is the Weather Service heat warning map for Saturday, and this is Sunday. The red means high risk for much of the population. And this is Monday, where the risk goes back down. Orange means moderate risk. Because it will be relatively quick and have cool nights, Multnomah County is not opening any cooling shelters where you can stay overnight. Instead, the county said it will have some cooling centers open during the day. You can check out their webpage for details on that. The webpage is called For When It's Hot, Help for When It's Hot. Or you can just Google Multnomah County cooling centers when you forget, like I just did. Also, we noted with interest that the City of Portland and Multnomah County Health are holding a kickoff of what they're calling Heat Week this weekend. Seems like a good idea in general. The focus is sharing lessons learned on heat preparedness. It's at the Leach Botanical Gardens, and it features the mayor and county health officer and others. And it will be held, yes, wait for it, during the heat of the day on Sunday. It runs from 1 until 5 p.m. Sunday will be the hottest day of the weekend. So here's my opinion on this. Are you kidding me? On the hottest day of our 3 or 4 day heat spell, you're going to hold a meeting outside to talk about how to keep people from dying in the heat? Here's an idea. Apparently you need one. How about meeting in an air-conditioned city or county building? Or maybe just postpone the meeting until things cool down a little bit. And by the way, remember last winter when the city of Portland said it would spend more than $11 million to put heat pumps, which can heat or cool a room, into 15,000 low-income households and apartments over the next 5 years? Well, guess what? We've been looking into it, and it seems the program's in a mess, best we can tell. The first company awarded the contract to do that work lost it after the Oregonian revealed a questionable background of the leader. And then the replacement company is still just getting going. So of the 3,000 units that were supposed to be installed by the beginning of summer, which, by the way, is right now, only about 31 are actually installed. So as this first heat wave sweeps through our summer, it's a reminder to those who serve the public to get your act together on this. Don't hold a meeting on lessons learned from a deadly heat wave outside during a heat wave. And move faster to get those heat pumps out to the low-income folks who need them right now. More than a few people are going to be pretty hot the next few days in rooms that could have been cooled by those heat pumps if that program was being run better. Well, that's my opinion. What do you think? Am I full of it? Full of hot air, perhaps? You might think so. It's okay to let me know. Or do you agree with me? Send me an email. Let me know your thoughts. You can email me at thestory@kgw.com or call and leave a voicemail, 503-226-5090. It's been nearly 3 years now since a Marine sergeant was murdered by her husband in the car where she sat with her 3 kids. Since Tiffany Hill's death, a new law passed in Washington that would allow courts to order domestic violence offenders to wear tracking devices. The devices would alert their victim if their abuser was nearby. We got a look this week at how it works.
On June 6th, we hit our first year using this program. So here's the steel strap. The victim gets a push notification, a text, and an email. So right now, we're in the exclusion zone. So the processes should have started for law enforcement to be notified by the monitoring center.
And see, okay, here he enters the actual exclusion zone.
Hello, this is the Track Group Monitoring Center. All calls are recorded. Our monitoring shows that you have entered an exclusion zone. Do you have permission to be in that area?
So we can see when he was there, how long he was there, where he was going, if he's stationary or if he's mobile.
Super interesting. The technology works well, but earlier this year, a KGW investigation found that in Washington, only Clark County was using that. This week on Straight Talk, Laurel Porter sat down with the investigators on Tiffany Hill's case and the Washington senator who helped pass the law to discuss why it's not being used more widely.
I really believe it's because the lack of knowledge that it's even out there, and it's not for lack of trying. I mean, I've worked with the administration of courts. They were supposed to get the vendor information together. They did, so the vendors are available. It's just a matter of getting the counties to know that the technology is out there. And
what about funding?
Well, the funding, it's always been an issue, right? I've always tried to get the funding since I started running the bill. And of course, when the bill passed, the funding was not in there. And so I was able this last year to get about almost $2 million that will be used for the jurisdictions so that their money is not a hindrance to getting this technology to be used.
Sergeant, from your point of view, what would you say to convince other counties to try this technology?
I would say, as a domestic violence detective when I was in that unit and on patrol where I am now, one of the most frustrating things is that you know a victim is in danger and you do not know where the offender is. And you do safety plans, you do all these things to try to keep your victim safe, but it is a constant stress and a constant worry. And it is terrible to tell a victim, well, hopefully we'll find him, but call if he comes back. I mean, that is not something we like saying to a victim of domestic violence. We know the danger. So this technology will literally lead you within 15 feet of the offender's location at any given time. So these high-risk victims you have an actual tool that will lead you right to the offender, and you can keep her safe and you can hold him accountable and avoid having situations like Tiffany Hill.
You can watch the entire discussion tonight on Straight Talk with Laurel Porter. It airs at 7 o'clock right here on KGW or on our KGW YouTube channel. Still ahead, a look at the history of a Portland memorial honoring fallen firefighters and the city's plans to restore it, when the story continues. Portland is full of history, and many of its landmarks tell a story of the city's history. But over the years, some of that history has been forgotten. Catherine Cook has a closer look at a century-old landmark and why its past and future mean so much to one group.
Somewhere between Southwest 18th and 19th and Southwest Alder, and kind of West Burnside too, is a place in Portland.
Do you know what this place is? I have no idea.
That many are as befuddled by
It's in rough shape.
as they are its address.
I have no idea.
It's a firefighter's memorial.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, dang.
It looks like some type of monument. Can't really make out. David somebody?
His name was David Campbell. Portland's fire chief at the turn of the 20th century. On June 26, 1911, Chief Campbell and every firefighter in Portland responded to a massive fire at the Union Oil distributing plant. Campbell borrowed a turnout coat from one of his men to attack the fire from the inside. A massive explosion blew off the roof. Chief Campbell never made it out. After Campbell's death, 150,000 people lined the streets of Portland for his funeral procession, and they built this.
This memorial to him was built by the citizens of Portland, not by the firefighters of Portland. He was that special to the citizens.
Don Porth spent 27 years with Portland Fire and Rescue. He's dedicated his retirement to doing right by Campbell. For him, that means restoring and improving this triangle-shaped property. Every June, there's a small ceremony here honoring Campbell's great sacrifice. And then it's back to ambiguity.
Just as that thing they drive by and they're not really quite sure what it is.
There's also the matter of the now 75 Portland firefighters who've died line-of-duty deaths. Many of their names were added to this memorial.
Every one of those firefighters has a story.
With little formality.
If we walk up, you'll see they're covered in dirt, tarnish, grime, and just really no interpretation of who those people were. We would like to reimagine this entire triangle by moving this up to the far end, the south end, opening up this lower area as an open public plaza for public use.
For Don, this memorial sits at a critical intersection, one connecting the past, present,
we just had our 75th line of duty death for Portland.
And future.
A man by the name of Jerry Richardson.
Jerry was a dedicated firefighter for the past 30 years.
Heather Richardson misses her husband Jerry every day. He died in November of lung cancer, brought on, doctors say, by years of fighting fires.
It's important. It's a big sacrifice that our family made. He was only 56. That's young.
Jerry's sacrifice and that of the 74 others are still waiting for a physical place in Portland where they can be honored.
It would mean the world to me.
Heather hopes it can be here.
So, be a good place for our family to be able to come and for our grandkids to understand what a hero he was for the citizens of Portland.
Right now, the David Campbell Memorial Association is creating a budget for restoring this place, and an architect is working on plans. They figure it'll cost around $1.5 million to complete. They've already raised $232,000 in donations, almost half of it from firefighters themselves. They hope the city will cover the rest.
In a statement to KGW, Portland's Fire Commissioner Joanne Hardesty wrote in part, "I enthusiastically support ongoing efforts to restore and improve the David Campbell Memorial for fallen firefighters. I've also had good conversations with my colleagues about providing funding for the memorial once a final plan is ready to go."
I think it's a way for them to take ownership and just a sense of pride.
With each step forward, current firefighters like Battalion Chief TJ Leonards are encouraged.
Make it something that people want to walk over and look at it. It's abused, it's disrespected, it's something that represents Portland. It's not just about the fire service.
It's really about time. This is David Campbell. He gave his life for a city that's forgotten. In Southwest Portland, Catherine Cook, KGW News.
For this week's Hey Help campaign, we're asking you to donate to Native American Youth and Family Center, or NAYA. They're a nonprofit serving the Native American community in the Portland metro area. They offer programs for families like camps, college and career fairs, early childhood programs, and foster care services. If you want to help out, just hold your phone's camera up to the QR code there on your screen, or you can go to kgw.com/heyhelp. That's the end of our program. Thanks for watching. But remember, the story, our story, well, that never ends. I'll see you on Monday.
This is KGW News.